Hey guys, what's up and welcome back to another video. So today my dad is going to be reading in the background, and it's just going to be a temporary thing since he likes to read to me. So let's get on to upgrading our stuff. So he's going to be reading in the background. Hopefully it won't disturb you guys too much. Well, it's just going to be helping me. So you can read whenever you want to, Dad. Yeah, and I probably won't be talking because of the reading. And you guys can comment down below if you want the reading and more videos.
Tell me, he said. He was more curious than scared. Ask nicely. Please tell me, said Jinx, glaring at her. Little boys are more used for spells than for work, Dame Glamour said. I don't know any spells. Little boys are useful ingredients for spells. Oh. Are you coming or not? Simon stuck his head back out into the kitchen and frowned. You're not scaring the boy again, are you? Oh no. He's a very, very brave little chipmunk. Dame Glamour grinned and went into Simon's room with her wormwood. Jinx was very watchful after Dame Glamour's warning. But weeks went by, and Simon didn't brew Jinx into a potion, and Jinx decided she'd just been trying to scare him after all. A lot of witches came to visit Simon. Jinx didn't like it when they looked at him and cackled, but he listened hard to their conversations, which were all about spells and magic, and now and then the Bone Master. They said nothing new about the Bone Master, just that he would suck your soul out with a straw and stack your bones up crisscross. Jinx could mostly see the colored clouds around the witches' heads. Dame Glamour was the only one with invisible feelings.
Yeah, you guys, Jinx can read like feelings and stuff. It's a superpower that he has.
He sees it in colors around the people, like an aura.
It's like red's like angry, blue's sad, I would think, and stuff like that.
Wanderers came to stay too, but they insisted on camping outdoors in Simon's clearing, although they did come in to use the bathroom. Jinx hadn't met many wanderers before. They bought and sold stuff mostly, and Jinx's clearing had been too poor to interest them. Jinx hung back in the shadows when they gathered around their campfire at night. He listened to their talk of other clearings and journeys along the path, and monsters they'd run into and then run away from. They spoke in their own language, and Jinx found he could understand it if he listened. Jinx worked hard. He swept and spread. He milked the goats, gathered eggs, and brought in firewood. He explored the clearing and as much of Simon's house as he could. He wondered how he could get a look into the off-limits rooms. As for his own room, he didn't like it. It was too cold and far away from everything. So he made a nest of blankets under the kitchen table on top of the warm stone stove. Cats walked around him every night. The kitchen smelled of cinnamon and cider, wood smoke and cooking. It was nearly winter and no one had turned the garden over yet. There were old, black, dead-looking weeds poking up through the thin snow. Jinx found a hoe and went to work. No, no, no! That's the next line. Simon came running out of the house, his purple robes flying. Idiot! He grabbed the hoe out of Jinx's hand. Jinx braced himself, but Simon didn't hit him. What have you done to my night-blooming bindweed? Simon knelt down on the ground. These are supposed to be in the ground all winter? No, these are supposed to be in the ground all winter. I'm sorry, Jinx said hastily. Never mind sorry, Simon said through clenched teeth. Help me dig them back in. They're very rare. I was lucky to get them to grow. The dark purple cloud of a very bad mood surrounded Simon and blotted out the sunlight. Jinx got down and dug the plants back into the cold, damp dirt. His fingers ached with cold and his nose ran and dripped down onto the plants, but he kept working and apologizing to Simon. I'm sure you meant well, said Simon. You did rotten, but you meant well. The thing that Jinx liked most about Simon, besides his cooking, was that he never hit Jinx at all. Not once. No matter what Jinx did, and no matter how jaggedy, orange, or darkly purple the wizard's moods got. This was something completely new in Jinx's
So yeah, guys, he used to get beaten by his old family.
His stepdad and his
aunt.
His aunt, right?
No, it was his uncle, I think.
No, it was his stepdad. It was his mom's second husband, and then his mother died, and then he married his mother's sister, which was his aunt. So it made him stepfather and aunt. Ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it is in poor places. At the top of the North Tower was a round stone room with a big dark window in it. It always seemed to be night behind this window. A chair sat facing it. One winter day, when the kitchen was full of Dame Glamour and she was cackling way too much, thin boy with black hair, brown eyes, and tan skin. Suddenly, the window cleared. The night was gone. Jinx saw Simon's clearing below, bright in morning sunlight. He could make out the tracks from Dame Glamour's butter churn in the snow. Beyond the clearing, the Urwald rose, trees hundreds of feet high. Jinx could see just a little way into the green darkness. Then, with a lurch, Jinx was seen far into the forest. Tree branches zipped past him as if he were flying. He was hurtling through the trees so fast he expected to be flattened against one at any second. Then he dove down and was rushed along the path, his eyes inches from the ground. He saw footprints, hoofprints, and claw prints frozen in the mud. A second later, he was swooping upward, looking down through branches at a party of trolls running through the forest. Then the trolls were gone, and he was watching the werebear climb a tree. Now he was hovering over a clearing, looking at a girl about his own age, dressed in red, who was digging in a garden, turning the soil over for winter. He would have liked to watch her for longer, but already he was zooming through the trees again, at dizzying speeds. Meow! The cat jumped at him, and Jinx was so dizzy he fell to the floor. He was back in the tower. He got shakily to his feet and saw Simon looking down at him. The wizard nodded at the window. You want to be careful with that thing. What is it? Said Jinx. The far-seeing window. How does it work? You need a spell to control it, Simon said. If you want to keep an eye on someone in particular, they have to be connected to the other end of the spell. Otherwise, the view just slides around. Could it show me my clearing? Jinx asked. He wasn't homesick exactly.
Just the way you look, maybe I could work with time on
you. As if the glass wasn't worth more money than most people saw in their lives. It's got a mind of its own. Only shows you what it wants to, I think. Don't you know? Said Jinx. Simon flickered irritation at him. Of course I know. I just told you. Chapter 3, Strange Feet. Winter settled in to stay. Simon was away a lot. He went places, leaving Jinx alone with the cats, and he often came back in a foul mood. But when he was home, life was better. The wizard was terrifying, but gradually it became a homey, woolen-smelling terror, as comforting in its own way as the howling of a winter storm. Jinx liked storms. They put Simon into a cooking mood. Simon could go on cooking for hours. Pie, bread, honey cakes, soup, stewed fruits, and baked apples. And Jinx stayed nearby, fetching things and cleaning up, and feeling safe inside the warm cloud that surrounded the wizard, even if he was usually pretty cranky. Jinx got used to the witches. Simon fed them and listened carefully to everything they had to say about magic, and then he usually disappeared into the south wing, perhaps to test what they'd told him. It was very lonely when Simon locked himself away for days at a time. Sometimes Jinx went up and gazed into the far-seeing window, which never wanted to show him his home clearing, but seemed to like showing him the little girl in the red hood. Little Red Riding Hood.
Wait, is that actually?
I don't know. Jinx got into the habit of talking to her. Since she couldn't hear him and didn't even know he was watching her, he had to make up her parts of a conversation. "I wonder where he goes," he said to the girl. But she had no more idea than Jinx did. Try as he might, Jinx hadn't been able to see into the forbidden rooms. He had explored every other part of Simon's house inside and out. He had even climbed onto the roof of the shed that the goats and chickens lived in and then slid off it into the snow, at first by accident, and then several more times on purpose. But he couldn't get into the forbidden wing. Simon kept the door firmly locked at all times. Then, sometimes, Simon would come into the kitchen in the middle of the night and Jinx would awaken to see the wizard's gnarly feet. Jinx liked to crawl out from under the table and sit down and have some cider and a piece of bread and cheese in the dark with him. Neither of them said anything. They sipped and ate slowly, letting the night noises and the night chill slide around them, and now and then pushing a cat off the table. One night in the early spring, Jinx awoke to see a different pair of feet. They were pretty feet, narrow and brown, with nice, neat toes that, unlike Simon's, had nothing in common with tree roots. There was a clunk of things being put on the table, and then Simon's feet appeared beside the new ones. "You were away for too long," Simon said, quietly so as to not wake Jinx. As not to wake Jinx. "Only a week," the lady said. It seemed longer. Jinx didn't know much about weeks and months. He knew what they were, but time ran together in a blur. Winter had come and gone since he'd been in Simon's house. Longer than a week then. And yet Jinx had never seen this lady's feet before. "You know they don't want me coming here," said the lady. "Uh-huh. But you do it anyway." An icky, silver-sweet feeling ran down the legs of the table and threatened to drip on Jinx. Alarmed, he gave a loud snore to remind Simon he was there. "What's that?" "The boy. He sleeps under the table." Jinx had his eyes shut tight when they both bent down to look at him. He didn't need his eyes to see people's feelings. Feelings came through anyway, as a color or a sound or a shape, sometimes even a taste. "Where did you get a boy from?" "I got him from his family. I paid a silver penny for him." This, Jinx realized, was not actually strictly speaking the truth. Simon had certainly said he was willing to pay a penny for Jinx, but then trolls had come along and saved Simon the money. "And what exactly do you need a boy for?" The lady's voice came from above again. They were no longer peering at Jinx. She spoke with an accent, as if the Irwish words weren't quite at home in her mouth. "He cleans up around the place, brings in firewood, things like that." "A slave," said the lady, silver sweet frozen like February ice. "He's not a slave. I'm going to pay him wages when he's older. So this is why you've been keeping me out of the kitchen all winter. You've been hiding a boy." "I knew you'd make a ridiculous fuss," said Simon. "It's just a boy." Through the kitchen. There were no other doors to the outside. "Anyway, he's company," said Simon, "like the cats, only less demanding." She must be in the forbidden side of the house.
Mm-hmm.
"Children are not house pets, Simon. Why does he sleep under the table? You have plenty of rooms in this barn." "I gave him a room. He won't sleep in it. He likes it under the table. I put a cat repellent spell under there for him." Cat repellent spell. Jinx had noticed that the cats that used to climb on him and wake him up no longer did so, but hadn't known it was because Simon had cast a spell. "Anyway, it's my business," said Simon testily, which I thought we agreed was completely different from your business. The silver-sweet feeling was entirely gone now, and Jinx wasn't as pleased by its departure as you might have expected. "If you're going to do anything evil, then it's my business," said the lady. "If I'm going to do anything evil, you'll be the first to know. Jinx, get up," said Simon, not raising his voice at all. He must have known Jinx wasn't asleep. Jinx unrolled himself from his blankets and crawled out from under the... A golden brown lady in a dark red robe was sitting at the table. She smiled at Jinx. Her hair was shiny black and curly. Her eyes were like the night sky. Jinx even thought he saw a shooting star in one before she blinked. She had a formidable nose. "This is Jinx," said Simon. "As you can see, he's perfectly healthy. I haven't cut off any bits to use in spells. Jinx, this is Sophie, my wife." "Your what?" said Jinx. He was still half asleep, or he would have had the sense to say something more polite. "My wife," said Simon. Jinx could feel amusement bursting in the wizard in little purple flashes. He was laughing at Jinx, but silently. He often did. "No," said Jinx. "No what?" said Sophie. She was still smiling. Jinx felt a soft green kindness from her and liked it. "He means no, you're not my wife," said Simon. "Sit down, Jinx. Have some cider." Jinx sat down and accepted the flagon of cider that Simon poured for him. He took a slice of pumpkin bread from the loaf on the table and turned it over in his hands. He had been exploring Simon's house and clearly, diligently for months, and he felt he would have noticed a wife. The wives were kind of hard to miss. Back in his clearing in the old days, he had always been scrambling to get out of their way as they surged across the clearing, arms full of wet laundry, water buckets, and firewood. "Wives are always carrying something," Jinx explained. "My wife carries things in her head," said Simon. "She is a well-known and important scholar." Sophie shot Simon an annoyed look. "Where do you come from, Jinx?" she asked. "The clearing," said Jinx. "And do you want to go back there?" Jinx looked over at Simon to see what was the correct answer to this. Simon stood up and went down the steps to stir the fire. Jinx got the message. He had to answer on his own. He thought. He was very lonely sometimes in the clearing, which was already becoming fuzzy in his memory. There had always been people around. In fact, you were never alone at all, especially not when you had to sleep at the foot of a straw bed with your step-parents' smelly feet in your face. Here he had his own pallet with no babies leaking on him, and enough to eat all
You guys
winter
hear that?
long. And Simon, who seldom actually yelled and never beat him at all. He still hadn't figured out what Simon intended to use him for, and maybe it really was just to work. And then he realized he wasn't as afraid as he used to be. Oh sure, Simon was scary and witches were scary, but back in the clearing, everything had been scary. Fear crept up the walls of the huts and dripped down from the ceilings, and you didn't even have to have frightening things in front of you to be afraid. Everyone was afraid all the time on general principle. Afraid of the Urwall and monsters and winter and hunger and what might happen next and the possibility of nothing might happen next. It had been, now that Jinx thought about it, exhausting. "No," he said at last, "I don't want to go back. I like it here." Simon was still stirring the fire, but Jinx could almost hear the loud "ha" that he thought at his wife. "Don't you miss your family?" asked Sophie. "They're all dead," said Jinx. As soon as he said it, Jinx realized his mistake. Simon had just told Sophie that he'd bought Jinx from his family. It was difficult to conduct business with dead people, probably even for wizards. Jinx took a bite of pumpkin bread to hide his confusion.
Okay, you guys, this is it for today. So I hope you guys had a good time, and please leave a like and subscribe. Peace.